is Ashley Eckstein, Ahsoka Tano from Star Wars The Clone Wars and Star Wars Rebels, and you're listening to Coffee with Kenobi with Dan Z.
You're not mad?
Over the years, I've made my share of difficult choices. Often no one understood my reasons, except my master.
You don't have the resources to protect the Outer Rim, let alone hunt down Imperial remnants. And I need work.
Let me get this straight. You want to work for the New Republic?
On a case-by-case basis.
We are going to get her back. And we don't stop searching until we do.
You just got me killed!
Well, I'm not the one that's engaged to a monster!
I don't need morality lessons from an aging grave robber!
I'm not a grave robber. Your father and I did important work together.
This is James Arnold Taylor, and you're listening to Coffee with Kenobi. I have a good feeling about this.
Hello, friends, and welcome to Coffee with Kenobi. I am your host, Dan Zare, delighted to talk Star Wars with you. Ever since May of 2013, I want to help provide a positive, family-friendly, spoiler-free place to discuss this galaxy far, far away. Imagine walking into your favorite coffee shop and hearing a discussion of Star Wars films, Disney Plus live action, animation, books, comics, collectibles, or Star Wars experiences at the Disney theme parks. I want to share that experience here on this podcast, weekly interactive live video every Tuesday night, my website, special events, email newsletter, and more. Find out more and join our Star Wars community at www.coffeewithkenobi.com. Thank you to the official travel partner of Coffee with Kenobi, MEI and Mousefan Travel. Check out coffeewithkenobi.com/mousefan-travel for a no-cost, no-obligation quote, and let them know Coffee with Kenobi and Dan Zare sent you. On today's show, Jedi News' own James Burns and Steve Galloway join me to look back and reflect on the experiences, moments, memories, and shows from Lucasfilm in 2023. So pull up a chair, grab your favorite coffee mug, and let's have some coffee with Kenobi. Hello, my friends, and Happy New Year to each and every one of you. I am joined by two distinguished guests. One is been on the show many, many times, a very dear friend of mine, the one and only Jedi News' James Burns. James, welcome back to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Happy New Year.
Or should I say James Burns? Because Jedi News doesn't come before you. You're the one who kind of made Jedi News into what it is. And you've had a lot of wonderful help. Speaking of that, he's a brand new guest, but he's a wonderful, dear friend. I had the pleasure of spending time with him at Star Wars Celebration last year. Steve Galloway. Steve, welcome to the show.
Hello there. How are you? And Happy New Year, should I say?
Yes, you absolutely. Well, thank you so much. Happy New Year to you. And it is wonderful to have you on the show. I'm excited to have you both on. One of the nice things about being a teacher is that during the winter breaks / Christmas break, I have a different schedule, so it's better for me to accommodate these all-stars from across the pond. So it's always a pleasure to have you both on. We're going to talk today about the highlights from 2023 in the world of Star Wars and Lucasfilm. Naturally, all under the Disney umbrella. Before we get into it, I'm going to put you both on the spot. Give me one word to describe Star Wars and Lucasfilm to you in 2023, and then give me an overall kind of reaction to 2023 in general through those lenses. Who would like to go first? I don't know what word I'm going to. James would like to go first.
Celebration.
Okay.
I think that would be my one word. And in terms of where we were in the year, I think celebrating. I mean, it all sort of comes together. It was a culmination with Ahsoka being the last show that we had on TV, I guess, or streaming. And it took a lot. It took many, many, many years to get to that point. So celebration and celebrating.
Wonderful. Steve, what about you? One word and then overall thoughts in 2023.
Again, celebration. It was obviously a fantastic year to have celebration twice in a 12-month period, because obviously Anaheim the year before, so that was fantastic. And for me, the giveaway has been just a deluge of Star Wars. We've obviously had TV series, but more so literature side, because obviously that's what my speciality is. And it's been constant this year. High Republic, Dark Droids, you name it, we've had it. And it's just been constant and a joy to read and watch at all levels.
Wonderful. My word is going to be bittersweet. And I mean that in a very positive way. We got the end of Indiana Jones with Harrison Ford. We had Celebration, but it had to be over. We saw the loss of some characters in fiction that were quite emotionally powerful. And the Halcyon closed down, which was quite impactful to me, which I know we'll get to through this. But that's more the kind of the bitterish part. But the sweet part was we got incredible stories. We got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 new series on Disney Plus of Star Wars. We got to enjoy Celebration together, make new friends. And we, again, on the sweet side, we got to see more Indiana Jones. So there's a lot of things that happen. The bitter parts are like emotional to us, but not in a bad way, more in a Lucasfilm is doing things so right that it affects us emotionally. And I think that is what you want from something that you spend so much time with in your daily lives.
Well, there's a reason why fandom has named Star Wars as the biggest franchise of 2023 without a movie release, which is crazy when you consider the number of movies that were released last year.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a reason why Star Wars is on a pedestal.
I agree with that. I agree with that. Go ahead, Steve.
It's exactly where it deserves to be. Ahsoka, and that has capped off so many things. And the promotion of Dave Filoni, which we're probably going to get onto, has, I think, capped it all for a lot of Star Wars fans, because he is now the heir to the Lucasfilm, not the heir to the Empire.
Let's start with Disney Plus. Okay. If I miss anything, let me know. We've got Bad Batch Season 2. We've got Mando Season 3. We've got Ahsoka. We've got Young Jedi Adventures, and we've got Star Wars Visions Season 2. And
Willow. You can't list.
Was that in this 2023?
It was. The last 2 episodes of the season were in January 2023.
Oh, okay. So we'll put an asterisk by that one, and then Willow as well. Okay, very, very good, because that is Lucasfilm related. And I guess probably did happen in 2023. So fair enough. So let's talk about this. We'll just go through each one sort of individually. To me, Bad Batch Season 2 was, I'll just say it now, my favorite series on Disney Plus this year. I thought it was magnificent. I thought the narrative never skipped a beat. There was no such thing as a filler episode, which I've always found to be a lazy piece of discourse. Anyway, it had impactful moments. It tied in other aspects of Star Wars together. The animation was gorgeous. The revelations. And how I felt at the end of Season 2, the pangs of heartbreak, which was the bitter part of my word for the year, combined with the hope and the excitement of seeing what is to come. I thought Bad Batch Season 2 was, to me, my favorite thing entertainment-wise in Star Wars this entire year, for everything. James, what about you, Bad Batch Season 2?
I completely agree, although I would put Ahsoka on the same sort of level as Bad Batch, because both of those series came from George and Dave. Without those two, we wouldn't have either of those series. And they both continue the story, albeit in slightly different ways, of the Clone Wars and the characters that we love and grew up with over the last 15 years. And I think I said a few days ago that this is probably some of the best television, I guess, and then streaming that we've ever had with the Clone Wars. And it's one of the best stories that Lucasfilm have put out. So for me to see a continuation of that in the Bad Batch and then in Ahsoka as well, albeit obviously it links to Rebels too, but for me, I just see it as a complete continuation of that. And for me, the Clone Wars is just up there. It's, more so than the sequels and some of the other content that we've had over the last 10, 15 years.
Clone Wars?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. I don't know if I ever knew that. Well, that's wonderful. It's glad to hear that. Steve, Bad Batch Season 2, how did that work for you?
It was fantastic. A couple of filler episodes, which conjecture, because there always did seem to be something moving something on. So although they might have been deemed as fillers, they were actually more character fillers. So they're actually expanding that character. So I don't think it was as obvious as it has with other series where we've had it in the Clone Wars. But I completely agree with James. For me, Ahsoka's up there on the pedestal as well. It's a continuation of Rebels, which I absolutely adored. And it brought back the character who's like one of my favourites of being Thrawn. So obviously that really punches for me personally through the old Heir to the Empire, as I've alluded to already. So Bad Batch 2, there was a lot in there. There was so many, and obviously the tragic events regarding losing one of the team as well. And sort of, there's grown men have cried over that. Mm-hmm. And for somebody to have that connection with an animated series, whether it be Star Wars or whatever, and to have that connection with something like that, and the character we've only ever seen as a cartoon, I think that just shows the level of writing and the power of what was delivered.
Oh, well said. And I love that you highlighted writing, which again, as you mentioned, is one of your specialties. Well, we'll just go backwards this time. I was going to talk about Ahsoka third, but let's talk about Ahsoka now. Is there anything you want to add about Ahsoka? It sounds like that might have been your favorite, or at least tied with the Bad Batch.
Yeah, I think Ahsoka was something that we've longed for many, many years. We knew that there was more to tell there. We knew that Dave had a story and he knew where the character wanted to go. And we've seen some of those conversations between him and George. And for me, one of the greatest conversations is when George announced that he was bringing and giving Anakin a Padawan. And Dave started arguing with him, saying, "What do you mean? He can't have a Padawan?" And here we are almost 20 years later, and Dave is championing this character who's been brought to life by 3 amazing stars now, which is wonderful. And part of me felt that the first few episodes were slightly slower than they needed to be, but I fully appreciate, and this comes down to writing as well, is that they made the series accessible. So for those that hadn't seen Rebels and didn't know what was going on, they spent those first 3 episodes explaining everything. So for those that were new to it, they completely understood what was happening. So I think that was very clever, but there was still enough there for us. Episode 5, which was the flashback episode back to the Clone Wars, was just incredible. Seeing Hayden back on the screen and seeing Ahsoka grow and learning so much from that flashback scene, and obviously where the flashback scene took place, the World Between Worlds, was just amazing to see. And we know there's more of that to come. Baylan Skoll was incredible, the character. The portrayal of the character was done incredibly well. And it's going to be really interesting to see how that can be carried forward. Obviously, the actor is going to be incredibly missed and is already incredibly missed. And I think the other thing that really, really struck me about Ahsoka, more so than some of the other series that we've seen recently, is the camaraderie between the cast. Mm-hmm. Obviously, there was very little PR and press done for obvious reasons, the strikes and stuff. But literally the minute the strike had finished, we got some amazing, candid, behind-the-scenes stuff from all of the cast who looked like they were having an absolute ball. And that just warms my heart to see that there are people that are creating this and bringing this to life, and they're enjoying themselves. And that's what we all want to do. We all want to come away from this with a big grin on our face, and we're all escaping to this galaxy far, far away. And to know that the people that are creating it for us are having as much fun as we are on the other side, I think is wonderful.
And it kind of it shows the camaraderie they have is like what some of us have in fandom.
Yeah, absolutely.
Cool. Steve, you already spoke quite beautifully about Ahsoka, but would you like to add any more to your a love for the series?
Yeah, it was Rebels Season 5. You can't hide it. It was a continuation of Rebels, but it was done in such a way that it's now connecting The Mandalorian, the Book of Boba Fett, to everything that's going on. And obviously it's coming to one big crescendo in a few years' time with Dave Filoni's film. But it was the artistry of it. It was epic. I know James was lucky enough to see episode 5 on the big screen, but for what we've seen of it, it's just so cinematic. It's like the Obi-Wan series the year before. It was just cinematic, and you watch it in 4K on a telly with a half decent sound system, and you actually feel it's just so well done and balanced. and it just takes it to that movie and cinema experience in your own home. And I think that's one of the beauties of it. It's just visually and audio are stunning.
Wonderful. I also liked Ahsoka. I agree with you at the beginning. I felt a little lost. I feel like the transition from creative to actuality, there was something missing, because I feel like the audience had to do a little bit of work to understand why Ahsoka and Sabine had such a strained relationship. I don't ever feel like that thread was ever satisfyingly told. And I'm saying this purely as a pretentious English teacher. Purely.
I get it. Yeah. Completely understand that.
And then as much as I loved it, I would wager episodes 2 through 6 were about as good as you will ever see in Star Wars.
Yeah.
Film, books, comics, animation. Episodes 2 through 6, I thought were, and I have a goosebumps now, they were perfection. Every week I would say, it gets better every week. It gets better every week. I couldn't believe it. And then the 7th was fine. I don't remember fully feeling how I felt about 7, but I remember 8, when it was finished, feeling very frustrated and unsatisfied that I felt narratively. The Balin Skull thing, they dropped the ball on that. And that's going to be hard to replenish because of the passing of Ray Stevenson, which that's more important than any story, any fiction, anything, the loss of an actual human being.
But it's the Leia thing all over again with episode 9.
It kind of is. So to me, and this is the big thing that I use when I critique other stories, I understand the notion of a cliffhanger. I do. I really do. But I feel like every story has to have a beginning, middle, and an end, or you have certain threads that will able to transition to a new story. And I feel like Balin Skull and Shin Hati, theirs were just dropped. And we were led to invest so much in them before, and then that went away, and that bothered me. I still, again, I'm not convinced that Ahsoka learned anything in this series, because she's already pretty well fully fleshed out. I mean, yes, I know that she learned I don't have to be like Anakin. I don't have to fall to the dark side. I don't have to be just a fighter. I know that. I just don't think we saw enough of Ahsoka's history to reveal that she had those weaknesses or flaws. And maybe I'm just super rusty on Clone Wars and I don't recall those episodes. But I feel like, again, those narrative threads where I had to do too much work to put pieces in that were never in Ahsoka's story to begin with. And I'm certainly led to believe that they are important. Again, not a negative, just for me, again, purely from that analytical perspective, I felt like there's more meat on the bone that I didn't get it. But I'm not ready to say it wasn't good. As I said, I thought most of it was perfection, actual perfection. Just the ending left me flat, which is why I very clearly have a line between Bad Batch season 2 and Ahsoka for me. That being said, and again, I think the importance of being a critic, and you both know this very, very well, better than I know it. If you like everything, then you're not really a critic. You're just a big fan. That's not bad. But if you're going to be critical or critique, that doesn't mean you're being negative. It means that your yes, when you say no, your yes has more weight. That's how I sort of rationalize it, because I feel sort of bad for feeling that way, but it's honest. And I'm always going to be honest with people about my opinions on these kind of things.
That's absolutely fine. But I feel that what frustrates me more about what the live action serials that we've had so far is that they're very thematic, in that Disney are probably saying, well, you've got the money to do 8 episodes. And what I feel they should be saying, the storyteller should be saying, well, we can't do that justice in 8 episodes. We need 11 or 9. And this is what we need to be able to do it. And I'm sure if they had those conversations in a rational way, I'm sure the powers that be would allow that, because I feel that there was some things missing from Ahsoka. Absolutely. There was an awful lot of storytelling going on, and some of it we were left hanging. Absolutely. And I'm sure there is, books, comics, other things that will come from the Mandoverse at some point that will fill in some of the gaps. But nevertheless, I would rather have seen those on screen.
Yes.
And if they're spending the time, effort, and money to create 8 episodes, to create another 2 is probably so negligible, and it would allow us to have more. So I would really like them to throw out this rule book that says they have to have 8 episodes, or they have to adhere to a particular formula to make a Disney Plus series. And it isn't just Star Wars. This is affecting Marvel and all the other genres that Disney Plus have got. You don't have to stay fixed to that rule book. If it needs 9, 11, so be it. Make it so, because it's better for us. It's better for us as a viewer.
Yes, I love that. I love that very much. I want to, just to be mindful and respectful of both of your time, I just realized I haven't talked at all about The Mandalorian Season 3 yet.
That's fine.
Steve, talk to me about Mandalorian Season 3. And I agree, by the way, James, more episodes I think would maybe take care of this whole thing.
Yeah, Mandalorian Season 3, again, gave us quite a lot. There was a blatant filler episode, shall we say, that didn't go down with a lot of fandom. 2 characters that didn't go down well, I've got to admit, and some of the storyline for that episode, as I know James will probably go over, is the droid bar in that episode and what that gave, and the brilliant cameo from Christopher Lloyd. So there were 2 huge positives from that episode, but in general, the going into Mandalore and seeing the background of it, one of my favourite characters is Boba Fett. So actually seeing where the Mandalorians come from and seeing what's gone on with the purges and all those, and it was just so interesting, and it gave us so many conundrums like we've had from Ahsoka, with the was it a clone, wasn't it a clone for Moff Gideon, that got toasted in the end, quite literally. So there's just so much going on, and it's left it as a bit of a, has Din Djarin retired with little Grogu Djarin, or is it going to go again? We know it's going to go again, but it's just all those little questions that it didn't answer at the end as well. But yeah, I thoroughly enjoyed it. I'm one of these people who enjoys most things that comes out of Star Wars. But if I review something or critique it, I always say, if I haven't enjoyed it personally, don't take my word for the answer. Watch it for yourself, or read it for yourself. Because the thing is, what fits for me doesn't fit for everybody. So that's really important to what I say. Don't worry about what I say. Watch it for yourself and make your own judgment.
And I think that is absolutely the way to go. I love that. Well, thank you for saying that. James, what about you? Mando Season 3.
I enjoyed some of it. I found some of it to be a little bit frustrating, and I felt that they were repeating some of the storylines and some of the way that they were doing things from the previous couple of seasons. The episode with all the cameos, I felt was a complete waste. As Steve said, there were moments in that episode that were fantastic, but I felt myself being taken out of Star Wars at that point, which is not something that I've readily felt with other series that we've had previously. And that's something that I never want to feel. I don't want to feel that I'm being taken away from what I'm watching, because I felt at 1 minute, am I watching an episode of Big Brother? It's just, it just didn't feel right to me. And that frustrated me a bit. And I understand why they did it, but I just don't feel it was needed. I think having guest stars appear or characters appear, provided they have a way to take the story further forward, that's fine. But I don't think these characters really helped move the story further forward, and I hope that they're characters that we don't necessarily see again, because I don't think they added anything. There were bits in it that were great. I love seeing Mandalore. I love the spider droid underneath, and that episode was fantastic. The way that was all done was brilliant. I love seeing Grogu playing around with buttons. I thought that was very, very funny. And I mean, the humor in the series continues to evolve and continues to get better, and I do like that. I like the light-hearted moments that we've got in the series. I just left the season feeling I wanted more from it, and I felt a little bit frustrated by it. I'm not sure why, but I'm hoping that season 4 will be better. And I think that we also have to remember that a lot of these things were done and rewrites were done during COVID, so they couldn't necessarily do all the things that they wanted to do. So, I take that on board as well.
I think the evolution of Paz Vizsla as an impactful character, besides just being sort of a volatile bully, I think was important. Him as a father, him sacrificing, was great. Everything with Mandalore was very interesting, and I enjoyed seeing that filled in. I really like that. The challenge for me with this one, and this is sort of a fault of the success of seasons 1 and 2. I think seasons 1 and 2 of The Mandalorian are brilliant.
Yep.
And I think they're so brilliant that in my mythology courses, we watch seasons 1 and 2. Every week we do like a Mando Friday, and we take essays and we analyze them. And I think they are so smart. And the Mandalorian Din Djarin is such a profoundly interesting character that truly grows and changes. He's actually a dynamic character. In season 3, he's kind of a footnote. He's not really the star of his own series. Now, I understand with the Book of Boba Fett, the best 2 episodes, in my opinion, were the ones where Din Djarin was front and center. But that's just because I like Din Djarin so much.
Yep.
And I was very much a champion of, it's okay that happened, because if it's called the Book of Boba Fett, that means each chapter, sometimes in a book, some chapters, they focus on different characters. This is not the Book of the Mandalorian. There are already 2 seasons of the Mandalorian, so that filter doesn't apply here. And from my perspective, so I was disappointed that a well-rounded, dynamic character became relegated to a static, one-dimensional footnote in his own series. Now, you just call it the Book of Bo-Katan, I'm in. I'm all in. But they didn't. And I think names matter. And I was very, I didn't like the direction they took with Moff Gideon. I thought he sort of became like a one-dimensional, I'm a bad guy. I really liked the idea that he was doing it all for the glory of the Empire in the first 2 seasons, but from his own selfish perspective, because he wanted to gain power too, but also for the glory of the Empire. Whereas in this one, it was more about, I want to wear cool armor, which was cool, and just have it for myself and mustache twitch, and I'm just a very boring bad guy. That was a little disappointing to me, because I don't know. Again, these guys are smarter than I am.
It reminded
much
me
better
though,
stories than I do. That part made Mando season 3 very low on my list.
and there were parallels there with the Rise of Skywalker, with the clones that we got of the Emperor. And I just felt, you've told this story before.
Yeah.
We need something different.
Welcome then either.
Yeah, correct. And in the first 2 seasons, you told so many new stories.
Brilliant.
And they worked so well
with well-rounded characters.
I just didn't think that they needed to go to that at the end of the season. I just felt it didn't excite me. It wasn't anything new. It was the same.
Yeah, and Mando deserves more. I think he's one of the most popular characters, especially Grogu.
Yeah.
And I think we needed more. There was no growth in their relationship. And I think I wanted more. Steve, what about you?
As I said, just everybody's opinion is their opinion. You've got to make your own opinion to judge it for yourself. But yeah, I completely agree. There were things that weren't right about it. There are things that would I have changed? Yes. Moff Gideon becoming a bit one-dimensional, as you say, I do agree with, but it did give us the Shadow Council. So we saw Gilead Pelion for the first time.
That's true.
And we saw that, and that's obviously started the wheels spinning for what could come from that, and obviously the mentioning of Thrawn. So that was where it all started to come together. This is obviously some of the things these are key words for me, because Pelion is Thrawn's right-hand man in the Timothy Zahn books. So these are sort of things that were massive triggers for me. But the thing with the cloning as well is, obviously we know that the Emperor has gone through the cloning process. We've seen that in episode 9, but we haven't really gone through the background of how cloning became something that wasn't just on Kamino, because we know Kamino gets torched in the Clone Wars. Mm-hmm. But we don't know what gets taken away, how that's being done. Obviously, we know that the Kaminoans are taken over by the Imperials, but we don't know to what degree that's got to. And obviously there's some teething problems, because obviously there's problems with clones failing. So it's the perfecting of that and transferring the Force through those new beings as well. Mm-hmm. So for me, there's a slightly different take on the cloning side. Probably that becomes from, again, the Timothy Zahn novels because of the Sparty cylinders and all those sort of things. These are all canon novels. Non-canon novels now.
Yeah.
And all legends. But I think that there's something there where Filoni and Favreau are trying to revisit those and bring some of that storyline in. And probably, I think if you've read those books previously, you might have a different take on it to somebody who's in it fresh. I don't know. I know you guys aren't fresh to it, but I am so invested in those books. So that Era of the Empire, I've said to James many times, and I've said on air many times.
It's great.
That was the reason I got back into Star Wars.
Yes.
I had no interest in Star Wars until I picked that book back up. And that is a Star Wars story for many, many people.
For the ages.
And it's that investment in that book and the amount of times I've read that book or listened to that book still forms part of that we're seeing there from Filoni and Favreau.
But I would have preferred to have a little bit more of the Shadow Council and a little less of Moff Gideon, because I just,
agreed.
you know, it leaves a, is Moff dead? Is it one of his clones?
Sure. I never thought about that clone thing before, but I don't traffic in any.
And
spoilers.
You know, I would be frustrated if it was one of his clones and he's still alive, because, yeah, I don't know.
He's dead. Mace Windu's dead. Uncle Ben from Spider-Man is dead. They're just it's okay for characters to die. It
of course,
the story forward. But I know you agree. But yeah, it just was sort of, it was off. It was off. But again, there's some wonderful moments in Mando season 3. We just wanted more. We like this character. We wanted
absolutely,
more.
And we want the character to succeed. And
yes,
we like the adventures of the Mandalorian. I just want to say one thing that we haven't mentioned at all, both in the Bad Batch, probably more so in the Bad Batch, but also in the Mandalorian. The music in both of these series this time out were exemplary. Kevin Kiner again as just goosebumps. The music in all of these shows over the last year have been incredible,
especially Ahsoka. That soundtrack was John Williams level.
Yeah, it really was. So
I agree,
and I just hope that they get proper releases, because I could listen to them again and again and again.
Me too. I would love to have them on vinyl personally.
Yeah, please.
Okay, let's look at Young Jedi Adventures and Star Wars Visions season 2. We won't spend as much time on that because there weren't as many of them. Overall, I thought Star Wars Visions season 2 was cool, was brave. It was very different in their style. Some of the stories, the story with the pit was so horribly depressing. I like my Star Wars with Hope, but it was effective storytelling. I hope they continue to do Visions for as long as Star Wars exists, because I think they're well done. And Young Jedi Adventures is so charming and so adorable. And I know we got to talk with the cast, and I like that it brings Star Wars in for new generations.
Absolutely.
Or James?
Yeah, for me, they're two that I haven't really engaged with. Vision season 1 I watched and sort of enjoyed it. I didn't fully engage with it. And season 2, I think I've watched the first 2 or 3 episodes, and it's one of those things that I'll watch when I get a chance to watch it. It's not something that's high up there, like I've got to watch Ahsoka the minute it drops.
Right.
It's one of those things that I'll probably catch up with. Young Jedi Adventures, fantastic what they're doing, trying to get the next generation in. I'm all for that. That's something that I think is really positive. Are they for me? Not really. I've watched the first couple of episodes and went, no. If I was probably there with my nephews or something like that, I'd probably engage with it a bit more.
Yes.
But not having kids of my own, it's probably a bit more difficult. The cats aren't interested. My wife definitely isn't. So for me, it's like, sat there, watched a couple of episodes, and I'm like, no, not really my thing. So, but again, it's not aimed at me.
Right.
No way aimed at the three of us. It's not aimed at any of us. It's aimed at a lot younger generation. And there is a hell of a lot of engagement. There's some great characters in there. We've got Yoda again as well, so that's always great. So I think it's a great thing, but not been for me.
James?
I've really, really enjoyed Young Jedi Adventures. I think it's a fun frolic into a galaxy far, far away with some great characters and some great lessons for younglings to take on board and to learn from. And I found them really fun, to be honest with you. I think my only issue with them is that there's been so many. It's like continuous, which I guess is not a bad thing. But I've really liked it. I've liked the way that they brought Yoda in, and I just think it's fun storytelling for preschoolers. And I think it's been well received. I think the cast have been fab with what they've been able to achieve. Mm-hmm. And I like it for what it is. Obviously, it's not necessarily moving our Star Wars stories further forward, but it is a lot of fun. And it's not something that I sit there religiously watching every time an episode drops. But when I've got a spare hour or two, I'll catch up on what's come out. And I've been engaged by it. I've really enjoyed it, to be honest.
It's super cute. And like you said, Steve, with little kids, it's just a home run. Like Mason was older when they came out, but I'm sure if I showed it to him when he was little, I know he would have eaten it up. All right, let's transition from what we see on screen. And let's talk about Star Wars Celebration Europe. It's hard to remember sometimes that it was last year. It's in my mind. I feel like so much has happened, just personally, professionally, in fandom since then. But Star Wars Celebration Europe to me was fantastic. It was the first celebration I'd been to in Europe before. I've been fortunate to go to London several times. Every time I've ever been to London, I've actually hung out with James. Now that I think about it,
you have,
as it should be.
Agreed.
It should be. But I got to spend more time with Steve than I ever have, which was absolutely delightful. Mm-hmm. And I thought Star Wars Celebration Europe was terrific. It was wonderful. The venue at sometimes was a little more crowded, congested, but that's a convention. What do you expect? The reveals were terrific, especially hearing about the new films. The only thing that was a bit of a fizzle for me is I thought the Return of the Jedi 40th anniversary, just overall, not just a celebration, kind of went off with a whimper. I mean, I don't really know what else you can do with movies 40 years old, but maybe a little different merchandise would have been cool, or maybe to have it in it was in big screens. That was a blast. That was an absolute blast. But Star Wars Celebration was very, very, very cool. The only thing I regretted about it was that I wasn't able to see more of my friends from the States, but I did get to meet Father Jimmy Morgan, spend some time with him, spend time with a lot of other people. Lots of laughs, lots of fun, lots of celebrating Star Wars. And I know this is going to mean even more to the two of you because both of you were instrumental in helping to bring Star Wars Celebration Europe to action from a fan perspective.
Star Wars Celebration for me has always been a highlight on my calendar. This is the third time it's been to the UK and the second time that I've been sort of heavily involved with it with Lucasfilm and Disney. Working hand in hand with the UK Garrison, the 501st Legion, is incredible, and it's a lot of work though. I spent 12 months working on the booth and on the bash and everything that goes along with it. So when it gets to the actual event, I was exhausted, but in a positive way. And obviously for 4 or 5 days, you're just working on adrenaline and there's just so much going on. And as a news site, we're trying to cover everything that's happening as well as sort of working the show, if that makes sense. And for me, I was actually working because I was working with Lego, which I thoroughly enjoyed. So it was amazing on so many different levels. As you said, the reveals were fantastic. For me, the best part, though, is hanging out with everyone, hanging out with you, and being able to catch up with folk that you only get to see at Star Wars Celebration shows. And that's incredible that we've got this amazing fandom that comes together once a year, once every 2 years to celebrate this incredible, incredible franchise. I think is amazing, and long may it continue. So, I mean, there were so many things. My daughter has been a fan of Ashley Eckstein for years and years and years. And whenever we've been where Ashley has, she's been busy and hasn't been around. And it's bizarre, but it took her to come to London for the very first time to get my daughter and Ashley in a room together to say hello to each other and actually meet each other. Ashley'd done videos for me and other bits and pieces over the years, but they actually got to hug each other. So for me, that was a highlight. And getting her to do that, seeing my daughter just elated by that was amazing. And that was the one thing that she asked me to do for her during the whole of Celebration. She wanted to meet Ashley. So from a father being able to achieve that was brilliant. But just so many amazing things at the show. Really, really was.
You can't, if you're listening, you can't see, but the three of us are just smiling away Steve and I are smiling away as James is sharing this. And there's also been a lot of head nodding throughout the entire recording, too. A lot of head nodding. Steve, what about Star Wars Celebration Europe for you?
I loved absolutely every second. The ride, in fact, me and James have spoke about quite a few times. 21 hours sleeping 5 days was my rider for that for those 4 or 5 days, and I do not regret a single moment of that. I was absolutely shattered, and that is very, very clean compared to how I actually was feeling at the time. You just run adrenaline. James had done so much work with Gary Howes from the UKG, and there's so many names that I should be mentioning here that we'd be ending the show next year in 2025 if I read everybody's name out who I could think of. But what the bash was amazing, raised some absolutely crazy money in the end. It just achieved so much, but again, it was seeing the Ahsoka. The Mandalorian episode with yourself, Dan, and Clayton. We had that fun evening on the first night,
yes.
And then it was just all the other things that you got a chance to do. I had a catch up with a few beers with Clayton on the Sunday with Dave Whiteley, and it was just having those half an hour or an hour in somebody's company who you've got a relationship, you've met online, we've done podcasts with, but you never actually sit down and grab a beer together because Celebration is usually that crazy. And also as well, the accessibility of the stars of Star Wars, including the backroom stars like Doug Chiang. They were just walking the floor and they were there, and nobody was going, I'm not going to speak to you. Everybody was so engaged and looking at their Instagram, Facebook, Twitter feeds, everything like that, or X feeds, as I should say now. Everything was just so positive. They were just like so keyed up and excited by those interactions with fans. And I don't think there's any other convention on the circuit that will engage direct people from the movie industry and from those areas directly with their fans and just come together like that. I don't think any other fandom or franchise can do that. And that's one of the beautiful takeaways from Celebration. It is Star Wars for Star Wars fans.
Very well said. Yeah, I knew Celebration would be a special memory. And of course, we've got one coming up in, a year and a half. So,
wow.
A lot to be excited and look forward to. Let's talk about Indiana Jones. He hasn't come up yet. This was the final run for Harrison Ford as Indiana Jones. The movie underperformed at the box office, unfortunately, but I don't think that's a measure of the quality or the passion that went into this film. No. Seeing, to me, and maybe it's too simplistic, but seeing Harrison Ford as Indiana Jones throughout his life is so invigorating to me, just as a person, and knowing, if I can even look half as good as Harrison Ford when he gets older. Plus, this movie, I think, more than any of the Indiana Jones films, had a very serious character study of what it means to be mortal and what it means to be human, and what real loss is, and how he went from being like this cartoon serialized adventure hero to much more serious in the emotion that he was dealing with. Now that threw me for a while, but I would be lying if I didn't say it was incredibly good storytelling. Is it my favorite Indiana Jones movie? No. But it doesn't have to be. I mean, Raiders of the Lost Ark is the shadow that I don't think anything will ever eclipse. And, we're just at that right age. Now, Mason, this was the first indie movie he saw in the theater, and it's his favorite one. So a very, very glorious thing. But I hope the Indiana Jones franchise continues. I understand it's hard to do without Harrison Ford, but I like the character so much, and being able to spend more time with him, albeit in a very different context and delivery, it was very, very welcome for me.
I just hope that they don't take it as a takeaway from the box office total, that there isn't room for more Indiana Jones, because I think there is, and I think it would work incredibly well as a Disney Plus series. Mm-hmm. We've had it before and it worked incredibly well then, and there's nothing to say that it won't now. You've only got to look at how well Percy Jackson is doing on Disney Plus right now. The numbers it's pulling in are phenomenal. So I think there is definitely room for it. I think the film was poorly marketed. It should have been marketed as a family adventure film. And I think the mistake they made was showcasing it at Cannes, because the negativity that came out of that showing was instrumental in the box office failure of the film, in my opinion. And I think it was a real shame. And I think the film deserved better than that, in all honesty. I don't think the film was as bad as some people made out. And I've yet to find anyone that actually went and saw it that turned around and said to me that it was terrible. Everyone that I've spoken to that saw it thoroughly enjoyed the film. So I don't quite get the box office totals. And I just put that down to poor marketing. I really, really do. I saw it 3 times in the cinema and thoroughly, literally thoroughly enjoyed it. I also just want to say a big thanks to Disney, because they allowed us to attend the UK premiere, and they allowed us to bring the team, or most of the team, with us. And I also was able to bring my 2 boys. So if I did for Miriam with Ashley Eckstein at Celebration, to see my boys both shake Harrison Ford's hand and for him to sign some stuff for them was absolutely incredible. And for them to understand what Harrison Ford means to me as a 50-year-old guy that's grown up with him from franchise to franchise to franchise over the years. And for him, and for them, Harrison Ford means the same to them, to their generation. So that was incredible to see.
I didn't know that. That makes me so happy. Plus, I had the good fortune to hang out with your boys, and they're awesome. So what a cool thing. This is great.
Yeah.
Steve, how did you like Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny? What were your experiences like with that film?
Well, my first experience was with James. I went to James +1 for the premiere. So to meet Harrison Ford is just absolutely everything. A modern icon of cinema. Not just for me. He's Indiana Jones. He's Han Solo. He's Ali Fox from Mosquito Coast. He's Rick Deckard in Blade Runner. Some iconic films that I just absolutely adore. So I've been a big follower of his career. So that's my main takeaway from it, and something that I will go to my grave. It's just an epic day. But the film, went to see it twice at the cinema, loved it. Took my dad for Father's Day in the UK. We have Father's Day in the UK in the end of June, and I bought my dad tickets as his surprise for Father's Day, and we had a lads' night out where we went for a couple of beers beforehand, and then hung out in the cinema in the big sofas and watched the film together. And my dad, who's now 76 years of age, came out, and he got the biggest, cheesiest grin on his face when he came out of the cinema, saying how much he enjoyed that film. He said it was a pure family adventure film. Mm-hmm. And that's exactly what James has said. So that's exactly as it was. On the flip side of that, I actually watched it again on the small screen for the first time on Christmas Eve, actually New Year's Eve, because me and my wife weren't going out. And I didn't actually enjoy it as much. The actual experience within the cinema makes indie. The special effects, the rip-roaring chases and all those sort of things. Although, don't get me wrong, I really enjoyed it still. I sat there with an inane grin on my face for 2.5 hours because I just love indie. But that experience in the cinema, if people had missed that, or people didn't go and see it in that format, I think they missed out on a hell of a lot. I thought he did absolutely amazing stuff with his character. The grief side, obviously, about losing Mutt. I know a lot of people say they don't care about Mutt, but the circumstances that were playing out in that is very parallel to where Han and Leia sort of like where they've sort of fallen out over a child sort of thing, over something that's happened significant in their life towards their children. And I just think that was a very clever parallel, but I think we saw a different side to Harrison Ford's version of Indiana Jones. And I'd love to see more. I'd love to see him go again. We know that's not going to happen, but I'm going to throw a different version of Indy for you. I'd like to see it as an animated series rather than try and recast Harrison.
Be great.
I think with the technology that we have for the Bad Batch, with how good cinematic that can be at times, and with the beautiful scores of Kevin Kiner et al., there's quite a few out there who else could step in. I think we could have an absolute gem in our hands if we went in that direction with it.
Even like the animation of Marvel's What If on Disney Plus, which I think is Marvelous. That wasn't a pun. Our that would be a great avenue. I like that, Steve. Well, gosh, we're running out of time. I just want to throw a couple of things. This last one, this is my honorable mention list, but this isn't an honorable mention. I mentioned at the top of the show, but the closing of the Halcyon was really impactful to me. James and I got to experience it for the first time on that media trip years ago. I took several listeners, 30 plus listeners on it.
It was only 23 months ago.
Yeah, that's true. I got to celebrate. Isn't that amazing?
Yeah, mad.
I got to celebrate Mason's 10th birthday on there with him. I got to spend time with wonderful people that become like family that transcend Star Wars fandom. It's a marvelous thing, a marvelous experience. I think nobody does experiences like Disney, and I hope that we get to see it come back in some way, shape, or form, because I thought it was absolutely wonderful, and that will always be something that will tie into my bittersweet thing as well. We didn't mention.
I was just going to say that again, the marketing.
Mm-hmm.
It was let down by the marketing. If they'd marketed it correctly, I appreciate the cost was exorbitant for a lot of people, and that put it out of reach for many. But I think if it had been marketed not as a Star Wars hotel, which is what a lot of people called it in the early days, maybe things have been different. But again, I've not met anybody that did it that
everyone loves it.
That came away and said it was terrible. Agreed.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Yeah. Everyone absolutely loved it. It was a big year in Star Wars with the end of Phase 2 and the beginning of Phase 3 of the High Republic. The Star Wars Dark Droids series was, I thought, awesome in comics, and I don't always fall for that kind of stuff, but I loved it. That's pretty much it. That's pretty much the year. I thought I would give the entire year a nice grade of an A-. If we have a Star Wars film in cinemas, A+. So we'll see, but I've really enjoyed the year. Lucasfilm has offered us a lot of wonderful things, and in 2024 looks to be just as good, if not better. Looking forward to that. James and Steve, any last-minute thoughts or things we didn't bring up that you want to mention on the show?
Wow, I mean, there was so much that went on. I think we have to mention some of the people that we lost in the year. Shauna Trippick, the fashion designer who has done so much for Star Wars over the years. That was very, very sad. We lost Marcus Deering, who was taken from us, which was tragic on many, many levels. And I just want to say that if anybody ever needs anything, just please reach out. Please, please, please reach out. Everybody in Star Wars fandom is a huge family, and we're all here for each other. So please, please bear that in mind.
Yeah, we loved Marcus.
We did. Yeah. Absolutely. We lost Stu Levy from Rancho Obi-Wan, who was taken from us in 3 weeks, far too young as well. And many others. We've already mentioned Baylan Skoll and Ray Stevenson, and just it's always difficult, but especially when a couple of people die of our age, that makes it, that sort of brings it home. Really does.
Yep, completely agree with that.
Steve, anything from Lucasfilm that you want to spotlight as we close out the show that we haven't talked about?
It's just been a really exciting year. I think you sort of said about sort of the High Republic is going to Phase 3. That's going to be really exciting.
With a very promising start.
Yes, a very, very promising
Five
start.
Darkness, excellent book.
I'm not quite finished it yet. I'm getting there. I'm nearly there. So no spoilers, please.
No, no spoil. Absolutely not.
So there's so much going to go on, and obviously we're going to get finally interlocked the Star Wars comics with Return of the Jedi. So that's going to link into that timeline properly now, so we understand where Luke goes and how Luke gets onto Tatooine with Leia and Lando, etc. So yeah, there's quite a lot coming in that side of things as well. So a lot to look forward to this year. As you say, grading it'd be an A-. If we'd have had a big blockbuster film, yeah, it'd have been an A+ or probably a distinction or whatever we call it these days. So yeah, it's been a good positive year. Again, bittersweet. Because there's obviously the Halcyon is something I will never get a chance to experience now unless it gets reincarnated as some other option. But hey, I hold on to the hope for that one.
I was just going to say, sorry, just icing on the cake for me was the Ghost. HasLab Ghost.
I have that written down too. Looking forward to that. I've always loved the Ghost. So that's pretty great. That's really great. Yeah, Hasbro, the retro line especially, which of course is always where my heart is.
Yep.
So many wonderful things I get to look at every time I record. Bittersweet again was my word, and I forgot to connect these dots, but I also was invited to the Indiana Jones premiere, but was not able to attend because I was on the Halcyon. So this is a silver lining.
Listening to Coffee with Kenobi, you are. With Dan Z, the podcast you're looking for. This is.
I want to thank both of you so very much for joining me to recap 2023. James and Steve, always a pleasure to chat with you. James, please let everybody know where they can find you and what is going on with Jedi News.
So Jedi News, all the Star Wars news, 24/7, 365 days of the year. Please come check us out at JediNews.com on socials. Just search for Jedi News Network.
And I say it every time, but it is not hyperbole. It is not an exaggeration. Jedi News is my place to go for Star Wars news. More than StarWars.com. It is. It just is. Facts. Yeah. And Steve, where can people find you? Talk about your coverage on Jedi News and where people can reach out to you.
Yes, I'm literature editor for Jedi News. I'm privileged to work with James daily on that. So basically, we just look after all the Jedi, all the reviews and everything that's coming out. So I've got two wonderful team members who work with us, Mark Alders and Kat Rishioka. Can't not give them a mention because they are the backbone of what we do. They're absolutely brilliant members to the team. So we do quite a lot there, reviews. So we do some crazy stunts sometimes and what have you, by just going, we'll try that as a run and we go for it. So we try and have a lot of fun there. So get in touch, please do. Steve at JediNews.com anytime. And again, thank you. And it's been an absolute privilege to be involved.
Oh gosh, the privilege is all mine. Thank you so much to Steve and James for joining me on today's episode. Please go to coffeewithkenobi.com for Star Wars news, announcements, reviews, videos, and so much more. The official travel partner of Coffee with Kenobi is MEI and Mousefan Travel. Please go to coffeewithkenobi.com/mousefantravel for a no-cost, no-obligation quote. And if you've seen the promotions, there's an amazing thing that Disney is offering now. If you are a Disney Plus subscriber, you get a free Disney dining plan for a 4-night stay. Go to coffeewithkenobi.com/Disney dining plan to find out more about that exciting promotion. Coffee with Kenobi CWK Live is Tuesday nights at 7:00 p.m. Central Standard Time at coffeewithkenobi.com/live. You can go to our Facebook group, which is the CWK Cafe, at coffeewithkenobi.com/community for Star Wars thoughts, comments, reviews, and opinions in a family-friendly, spoiler and drama-free place. Coffee with Kenobi is possible because of the members of the CWK Alliance. Thanks to you, this podcast, CWK Live, event coverage, and so much more comes to life. Find out how you can help the show for as little as $1 a month by joining the CWK Alliance, and you will receive access to CWK Pour-Over, an exclusive weekly audio and video podcast not heard anywhere else. Members at the CWK Alliance All-Star level receive a video edition of CWK Pour-Over and access to a private Facebook group as well. Plus, CWK Alliance Grandmasters join me for a monthly live video call. Find out how you can join the CWK Alliance at coffeewithkenobi.com/CWK Alliance. 10% of these monthly contributions also go directly to the St. Jude Children's Hospital. You can email me at danz@coffeewithkenobi.com. Connect with me on X at Mr. Zer, MRZEHR. You can also find me on Instagram and Threads at danzercwk and also on LinkedIn. Coffee with Kenobi is on social media such as X, Instagram, Threads, Pinterest, and TikTok. You can give the show a like on Facebook at facebook.com/coffeewithkenobi or subscribe to Coffee with Kenobi's YouTube channel where you can find over 700 videos, past live shows and events, and this podcast. Please take a couple of minutes to rate and review the show on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Google Podcasts. You can get a t-shirt or hoodie with the logo of Coffee with Kenobi at coffeewithkenobi.com/shop. Finally, if you need a speaker for an upcoming event, you can book me to come to your school, conference, business, or organization. I'm happy to talk with your group about how to tap into your strengths, bring out your very best. discuss mythology, or customize a presentation to fit your specific needs. Thank you always for joining me for a virtual cup of coffee. I appreciate your time and look forward to the next opportunity to talk Star Wars with you. I'm Dan Zare, reminding you that this is the podcast you're looking for.
This podcast is not endorsed by the Walt Disney Company or Lucasfilm Limited. It is intended for entertainment and informational purposes only. The official Star Wars website can be found at www.starwars.com. Star Wars, all names, sounds, and any other Star Wars related items are registered trademarks and/or copyrights of Disney and their respective trademark and copyright holders. All original content of this podcast is the intellectual property of Coffee with Kenobi unless otherwise indicated.
This is the podcast you're looking for.